Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I mean, obviously, I think we're going to have a significant degree of normality beyond the terrible burden that all of us have been through over the last year. That as we get into the fall and the winter, by the end of the year, I agree with the president completely that we will be approaching a degree of normality. It may or may not be precisely the way it was in November of 2019, but it'll be much, much better than what we're doing right now.
That's Dr. Fauci, baby, doing Dr. Fauci stuff. So people are pissed and angry at him. And we're going to talk about a lot of this stuff today. You know, he is. Do I think he's been the greatest? Give him a C. You know, I mean, I think we've all had our ups and downs. But at the same time, do I think that there's, and I want everybody to realize this. I take this serious. I never didn't take this serious. We talked about this months before it landed here. I kept telling everybody in December, something's happening. Something's happening in China. Nobody's paying any attention to it. In January, something's happening in China. Nobody's paying any attention. Then it got to Italy. And then people said, ooh, what's going on over there? Then you had Fauci come on, right? I think it was February. He's like, you don't have to worry about anything. And then the mask thing. So I've taken this thing serious. I have. But I've also asked questions. You know, I think in life it's good to be, and I tell everybody this, an open-minded skeptic. I'm open-minded. But I want to look for myself. I'm not going to take just your word for something. I'm open-minded. I want to look. Can we ask some questions about stuff? Is it okay to ask questions? Because when I see people say, well, you can't ask that question, that makes me think, well, if I'm asking that question, it's because people that don't want me to ask that question are afraid that I may expose something or another group may expose something. So all of these things are fair to ask questions about. It's a great article about asking the question, was this really a pandemic or was this really a bad flu? I didn't write it, but it was a very interesting article. Do I think it was more than a flu? Yes. Do I think it was the kind of thing that rises to the level of some other pandemics? No, probably not. Do I think there was a lot that played into what happened? Yeah. And do I think that people have skin in the game who aren't the average person? Yeah, absolutely. So we're all asking the question, when do things get back to normal, you know, and the goalpost keeps moving. Well, it's this time, there's this time, then we're going to get this, and we're going to get that, and we're going to get this, and we're going to get that, and that's going to happen here, but it may happen here. All of a sudden, we're moving stuff back, but this is going to work, then this isn't going to work. Now we have all these new strains. Well, if you get it, you could probably re-get it again, even though it happens very rarely. But how do we know they had it the first time? Because at the beginning of this thing, we were all a hot mess trying to figure this thing out. Your antibodies are gone after 2-3 months. Well, hold on. They may not be because they have memory, and they may not show up in an antibody test several months after you've taken it. But it doesn't mean if you introduce something to it that they wouldn't, you know, take off and start fighting it, because we don't know. But it's fair to ask questions about things. Absolutely. That's why being an open-minded skeptic, no matter what it is, whether it's the voting, you know, it's totally fair to ask questions about voting. Not because I didn't think Biden won, but because I think there were some things that states did that went against their constitution, and that we have every right to ask questions. Why are unelected officials doing some of these things? That's a fair question to ask. I'm not saying that there was some magical thing behind, you know, there's a wizard here and a wizard there, and they're all pulling the strings and boom. But those are fair questions to ask. You asking him doesn't make you a nut job. We have stopped asking questions, and we take everything that somebody says anymore, whether it's on the internet or on television, as the gospel truth. I tell you guys, go look up stuff. Go ask questions. If you don't like what I said, or you go, hey, you know what, Chad? I challenge you. Do it. I'll prove Chad wrong or prove Chad right or whatever. But I think it's fair. But we've stopped doing that.
Why do you think Americans might have to wear masks into 2022?
You know, because it depends on the level of dynamics of virus that's in the community. Because if you see the level coming down really, really very low, I want it to keep going down to a baseline that's so low that there's virtually no threat, or not no, it'll never be zero, but a minimal threat, then I believe you're going to be able to say, you know, for the most part, we don't necessarily have to wear masks.
So wait, now you want us to wear masks, potentially longer? So I'm going to go get one shot because I've already tested positive for the antibodies. And how real is that? I don't know. But I'm going to go get one shot. So because that's what they're telling everybody. If you've had this already, get one shot. So you go and you get one shot. And now it's wear the mask. And now it's, and I'm sure social distancing and certain things will come into play here along the way. Not that masks aren't cool.
Were you wearing a mask? Were you burned by acid or something like that?
Oh, no, it's just they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future.
Great cut from The Princess Bride. They may all be wearing them in the future. I don't know. And I think some people will. I think there's going to be a psychological effect on some people that they will wear masks and they will social distance by nature over the coming months and potentially years. That's why I've said since the beginning of this thing, once we get out of it, there is still the psychological aspect, especially when it comes to the economy. Frequenting the places you used to go, going into places and having a normal time that was pre-COVID where you're hanging out with your friends and family and you're not worried about how far apart you are and the fact that the restaurant may be busy or the movie theater may be busy or the person you're sitting next to that you don't know at a sporting event. That's going to take a while for some people. But it's okay to ask questions. Last week, Dr. St. John Hopkins, or John Hopkins, whatever it is. I always mess it up. My buddy calls it Johns Hopkins. It's not. It's John Hopkins. Said it's a doctor. And he said, look, by April, I think we're going to be at a point where we're nearing herd immunity. I think it's a fair thing. Now, he'll get poo-pooed and hammered across the board. How dare he bring this up? How dare he say this? But I think it's a very fair question to ask. Could we be getting to that point? It's a possibility. He said, you cannot explain the precipitous drop in so many of these places to we're just not seeing family and friends anymore, and some people have vaccines. There's more to it than that. There is. But for some powers that be, I think that, they couldn't come in and tell us, we're getting close to it. It's too much invest in it. Too much money's been spent. Too much time. Too much story's been told. So I think it's a very fair question to ask. Again, it's asking a question. If you're not curious about it, that's what I tell my kids all the time. Always be curious. Always be asking questions. Always be looking to see all of the story, not a portion that somebody told to you or wants you to see. And that's a problem with our society right now. We have a situation where half the people want to tell you a certain story. The other half want to tell you another story. Both of them are telling their stories. They're not telling the story. And that goes with everything from election to COVID to many other things. And that's sad. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Imagine you're flying. You're like, I'm going to Hawaii, baby. Oh, my God.
I thought we were in the clear. We were just hitting altitude going into the clouds. And I turned over to just talk to my daughter, and all of a sudden there was just this huge boom. And that's the only way I can describe it. It was a boom that almost felt like an explosion, and you knew that there was just a big problem.
Yeah, big problem indeed. And I'm sure everybody's probably seen by now. If not, you can go to at Chad Benson Show on Twitter and check it out. So two of the fan blades were apparently cracked, one really at the beginning of it. It snapped off and caused this Boeing 777 to get into the engine. And it's a Pratt and Whitney engine. So, sometimes Rolls-Royce is and the others. There's 777 has several different engine makers, and this one's not on all of them, but it cracked, went in there, and it was a catastrophic fail. There's two kinds. There's a benign fail where maybe the engine has issues when it comes to it's not getting enough fuel through there and the pressure and it turns itself off. This was a boom, catastrophic one. And it managed to land safely. That's how amazing these airplanes are. But it was terrifying. I mean, you're up there a good ways because this wasn't just on takeoff. They had gotten to that point where they're cruising altitude and they're looking out and they're seeing an engine bounce and look like it's on flames because it is. And like, oh my God, they're waiting for that explosion moment or that thing to fall off. Yeah, you're if you're not religious on the ground, you're religious there.
Initially, there was chaos. I mean, I did scream, and my daughter kind of said, "Mom, don't scream." And I grabbed out my rosary. I was scared. I mean, there were people around kind of yelping and doing a little bit of, which is to be expected. And then we kind of went calm. Everyone went calm to hear what the flight attendant was telling us was going on.
Yeah. It's Brenda Doan. She's a passenger. What's happening, what's going on. And it's terrifying. I mean, you couldn't even imagine like being on something like that where you're looking out there and you're waiting for that moment. You're waiting for the thing. Like, does the fire get to the fuel line that gets in here that makes this explode? Does the engine fall off, tearing the wing to the point where it's unflyable and you're crashing to earth at God knows how fast? What's going on? Like, how does it get here? What happened? They'll be tearing the engine apart from top to bottom. It did land safely. But looking out there, whoo, Boeing. So they're grounding these planes in some areas to double, triple check, especially with these engines. But overall, they had the system. They checked the system. This is what it is. Here we go. This is what we need to do. This is it. These planes are built to withstand so much stuff. Even something like that, they were able to do. And they flew and landed it safely. But it was terrifying. And then imagine if you're sitting at home, you're like, what the hell was that outside? And you go outside, and there's this giant part of an engine sitting in your yard. And I don't know if you've seen that big red thing that lands in the middle of the street at somebody's house. Like, it just, boom. Like a Ring doorbell or something, and boom, there it is. That had to be terrifying. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us. Hope you're doing well on a beautiful Monday, kids. AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens, fastest growing over 50 organization in the country, helping you out with things like, well, let's just say you're debating on whether to take Social Security. When should I do it? What's best? How do I do this? Medicare, the whole 9 yards. You call them up. They help you with it. Okay. Maybe you aren't 50, but you do need health insurance or life insurance. They've got plenty of partners they work with. They'll get you great discounts. Plus, they have retail, restaurant, hotel discounts, travel discounts. They've got discounts on everything from movies to amusement parks and everything in between. And on top of that, they're fighting for your rights for the First and Second Amendment and many other things. Join today. It's pennies a day. It's like $16 a year. It's an amazing organization. Put them to the test. Go to amac.us/Chad to join. amac.us/Chad. amac.us/Chad. Chad Benson Show.
Deep states? No. Deep doo-doo? Yeah. The Chad Benson Show.
Hi, Gina. Are you here to apologize?
I'm here for the opposite of that. I've done nothing wrong. No one could even explain what I did wrong. Explain it.
Okay, on Instagram, you said conservatives have it as bad as people living in Nazi Germany.
Okay, congrats. You explained it. Look, I never would have made that Nazi comparison if I'd known everybody was going to be such a Nazi about it.
Saturday Night Live is awful. I don't know. We're just talking about how awful it is. Just awful. It's the best way to describe it. At best, you're awful. At worst, you're cringeworthy. They were trying to do Ted Cruz, Britney Spears, some sort of thing, and I was like, this is bad. Like, you could have, I told the guys, you could have gone out and riffed. Just, hey, guys, go out. You play Britney, you play Ted Cruz, and there's going to be this thing, and you guys are going to apologize. You guys can do some stuff. Just go with it. Have fun. Speaking of Ted Cruz.
It was a mistake. At the same time, look, I mean, I got to admit, I started having second thoughts really as I sat down on the plane, as I started leaving. School had been canceled. It was something that we could do, and we were trying to take care of our families, which is what millions of Texans are doing. But at the same time, you're right. As a leader, you need to be here, and you need to be here when Texans were hurting.
You're not a leader. That's the reality of it. You're not a leader. And I don't look at politicians as leaders. You may be the leader of something, your party, right? The president, you're the leader of the free world. But as far as like congressmen and senators, you're not leaders. You're not thought leaders. People aren't going, well, those people. You're there to try to preserve the past and give people the opportunity to live their lives based on the Constitution. That's the leader in the clubhouse and continues to be so. Period. At the end of the day, that's what it's. You're not. I look at people who are trying to lead from the front, who are trying to go out there and lead in such a way that they have a vision, that they're looking for things beyond their politics and keeping their fiefdom. Those are leaders. You're a politician. That's it.
We're at a very divided place in our country where people are screaming vitriol and hate. And you know what? I think that is a sad sign of where we are. I don't do that to other people. You don't see me screaming at people I disagree with that they need to resign. And one of the things I'm most dismayed about how the last 24 hours has played out, this whole thing has dominated the airwaves instead of focusing on let's solve the problems. Listen, Texans want the power back on. They want the water back on. They want the problems solved.
Which is all true. I mean, but this happens everywhere because it's so much easier to focus on what's the thing that we can do where we can have a villain and then we can blame something for it, but we're never really here to solve the problem. Texans are not only digging out of this cold, but they're also in a position where they're looking around going, some of these people have huge power bills. 10, 12, 16 plus $1,000 power bills. Remember, they're unregulated, and they're their own power supply across the board. Everything is in-house. They have no federal oversight. They're the only state that does it. People are asking questions about that as well. But let's figure out the problem. Let's try to solve that. And then if you want to blame Ted Cruz for the winter weather, go ahead. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
It's stunning, horrible. I mean, if you look at what has gone on now, and we're still not out of it, 500,000 deaths. It's terrible. It is historic. We haven't seen anything even close to this for well over 100 years since the 1918 pandemic of influenza. It's stunning when you look at the numbers, almost unbelievable, but it's true. This is a devastating pandemic, and it's historic. People will be talking about this decades and decades and decades from now.
Of course they will. And I think when we go and we look at the numbers and we do a postmortem, if we're honest about ourselves, I think we're going to say at times that, you know what, did we overreact in certain situations? I think we did. Absolutely. I think there was definitely an overreaction in some things. For sure. By the way, under 25, when it comes to the deaths, they were lower than they had been in previous years, just to throw that out there. By and large, it wasn't what, we hear that, okay, we've lost 500,000 people. And the numbers won't totally be in. But if you go and you look at the numbers comparatively to, say, it's going to end up being about 20,000 more than we lost the previous year to maybe 40,000. Not quite sure where it's going to end up totaling out. But, month to month, yeah. And how many of these? There was months when, in June, we lost more people in 2019 than we did in June of 2020. March, same thing. February, which this thing really hadn't even landed here. We had, more people died in February, 2020 than did in the previous year. So it was an up and down thing. At the end of the day, how many people died because of this? Those are the answers I want to know. And I'm talking today about being an open-minded skeptic. This played a huge part in our last year, not just financially, but obviously health-wise. And it opened up a lot of people's eyes to how unhealthy we are with obesity, with smoking, bad habits, etc., etc. But I want to know numbers. Okay, so let's just say that we only counted this. How many people died strictly from this? They're fine. They're walking down the street. They got sick. They got a little bit sicker. They got a little bit sicker, a little bit sicker, and they had nothing else. How many have had 2, 3, 4, 5 comorbidities, and this was the final straw? If they'd have caught the flu, they may have been that way. They weren't lasting another 6 months, let alone 6 weeks, if they caught this. So because I think those things are important. As you're going to make a choice in the coming months, and you're trying to ask yourself about certain things and the calculated risks that we take on a day-to-day basis. So I think when we break this thing out, there'll be some situations where we're going to ask ourselves, was that really necessary? Do we overdo it here? Did we underdo it here? Were we not being given the right information? Was some of that on purpose? Or was some of that because people were just throwing stuff against the wall because it was a novel virus? Then you go back to the school side of things. Remember what I told you? Under 25, less deaths across the board. 25 to 44, there were more deaths than normal, but it wasn't absorbed. I mean, it wasn't. You go back 20 years, and you're like, well, there was a lot more deaths there than there were this. So I'm trying to break it down because I want the real story. I want the entire picture. Because as we move forward, I feel like goalposts are always going to be moved, and I think we should seriously start asking questions more and more, and it's okay. It's not about being a contrarian. It's about just, hey, I'd like the whole picture, not a portion of it or the portion you want me to see. And when it comes to schools, that's another thing. I don't know when my son's going back to school. I couldn't tell you. I could not tell you. What I do know is the teachers' unions have a lot of powers. In some states, you don't have teachers' unions. In other states, you've got powerful teachers' unions. In some states, even the places that don't have teachers' unions, they want certain things in place, safety. That I got zero problem with that. But I do think there's politics involved in this.
I do actually want to debunk this myth that teacher unions, at least our union, doesn't want to reopen schools. Teachers know that in-person education is really important. And it's, we would have said that pre-pandemic. We knew that remote education is not a good substitute. There's a roadmap now in terms of defining those risks between the CDC as well as the resources President Biden is trying to get in the $1.9 trillion package. We have the highway or the roadmap to do this.
But the teachers' unions are pushing back. They are. Now, you can say that all you want. By the way, that is the president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO. You could say that. So what is exactly the teachers want? Just curious.
It comes down to three things: the layered mitigation strategies, testing so that you can actually see asymptomatic spread, and vaccine prioritization. Not that every single teacher has to be vaccinated before you open any schools, but you should align the vaccine prioritization with the reopening of schools.
Okay, so they want testing. It's going to be are you going to test every single day? I mean, a test is only as good as it is at that moment in time. So if I test you today and I get the results back 2 days from now, between now and then, you could have gone to 10 different places and had a chance to catch it. So how are we going to know? That's that calculated risk.
Just did a survey of my membership, and 85% have said that they would be comfortable being in school if they had the kind of testing, layered mitigation, and vaccine prioritization. My members want it. They just want to be safe.
More and more people are saying, yeah, that's not really it. We're not buying it anymore. Because some of these places are asking for other things inside of there. It's not about just getting a classroom. There's other things that they're asking for in California, New York, Chicago, these really powerful places. Well, we need this too also. We need this. It have nothing to do with the pandemic and all to do with the quality and all of these things. Parents are pissed. Parents are frustrated. Jack's mom is beyond pissed at this moment in time. Every right to be. My mother's given up. She's putting some of the kids in private schools. So for those you guys don't know, if you're new to the program, my mother's adopted my nieces and nephews. So I have little brothers that their age range is 15, 10, 11 now, and 8. Private school. Because they're in there. By the way, they've had 0 issues at their school. 0 issues. 0. People are pissed. They want the kids back in school. Not a day a week. They want them back in school. Because how are they? And women who predominantly are the keepers of the kids in a lot of ways. I don't know what that says about us guys, but that's the reality of it. They call this the she session because so many of them are dropping out of the workplace because they've got to make some sort of sacrifice. And they end up being the one to say, all right, I'll do it. Mostly because, like, Dad, you don't want Dad teach. Mom, don't let Dad teach. It's going to be awful. It's going to be awful. And then some of you are like, yeah, let Dad teach. You're like, no, I'm going to stay home because that right there gave it away. That right there gave it away.
Listen, this is the type of baloney that is going to make parents' blood boil all across this country, and it should. Anybody in political life right now who is not saying follow the science from the Journal of the American Medical Association and reopen our schools safely immediately is a political leader who doesn't deserve to be in the job they're in. You need to stand up and stand up for what's right. We need to put our children and the parents first.
Yeah, but they're not going to. Because politics is right there. So why in God's name would they? Why in God's name, if you have a chance and you have the perfect, oh, I don't want to, or it's because I'm scared. You're not scared when it comes to the flu. And the flu, for those of you who don't look at the science or understand it, is far more deadly to the children. It is frustrating. We're going to talk a lot about this because more and more parents I hear from who at one time were very pro-teacher are becoming less and less so. And I don't know if that's fair because I think a lot of it has to do more with the unions and the powers to be well above them. I'm sure there's some out there who are, but it's very real because it affects you. And we live in a world where how does this affect me? Well, this affects you like this. Flip-flopping days to stay at home, take care of your children, finding other people that help you going to take care of your kids, and going to the point where you're either quitting your job or you're having to find a new job that will allow you to switch off so you can watch your kids. And it's putting a huge stress in your life, big time. And you know it, and I know it. Speaking of kids, this is great, guys. I want you guys to listen to this. This is a history teacher talking to his children. They're older. Right, so we're not talking about like 5-year-olds here. You know, we're talking about older high school age kids having a discussion about Helen Keller and who Helen Keller was. If you think that Helen Keller was the leader of Nazi Germany, raise your hand.
Helen Keller is the Nazi guy.
No! What Nazi guy?
I don't know. He's like a terrorist.
Helen Keller is a Nazi terrorist that is a male. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah, I'm going to write Helen Keller up here. Yeah. Right?
No. Are you thinking of Hitler?
Who's Hitler? Who's Hitler?
Who is Hitler?
Helen Keller was the blind and deaf person who was fake. She didn't exist, but everyone believes she was deaf and blind.
What? She was fake?
Yeah, she was deaf and blind.
What Pearl Harbor was, if I say Pearl Harbor.
Now, I want you guys, Pearl Harbor. What was Pearl Harbor?
Is that a bridge?
Is that a bridge? But if you think that's bad, it gets better.
Do you know what D-Day is? D-Day.
A person? A rapper?
Are you being...
Kids need to be back in school. I mean, that is... I don't even know what to say at that point. Who's D-Day? Is that a rapper? Isn't that the guy in Animal House? Which is true, by the way. D-Day was a guy in Animal House. But it's all... it's also part of history. Did we storm somewhere? Did we... Who, what? Is he a rapper? Is he a rapper on a bridge named Pearl Harbor? I don't know. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Twitter. Tweet at us. Text the program. Love hearing from you. Wounded Paw Project. Speaking of D-Day. Speaking of veterans. Just an amazing organization. They rescue dogs that would be euthanized. And they get them to our veterans, our first responders, and their family. And the work that they do is incredible. So these dogs, first of all, they recognize what's going on with their veterans, the struggle they have transitioning into normal life. Many of them are struggling with PTSD. Some of them are struggling with both PTSD and issues when it comes to being injured. So physical issues. So they said, well, how can we help? And it was started by veterans. So what they do is they rescue dogs who would be euthanized. And they train them to help veterans, first responders, and their families. And the work they do is amazing. But it's expensive and it takes some time. And they need your help. Now, you can give a great gift, a donation of a vehicle. Doesn't matter. ATVs, boats. We all know you buy a boat. You're like, this is great. That's the first day. By the second day, like, this sucks. I want to get rid of this. Great way to write this off and to help our veterans. Find out how you can give a vehicle. Also give cash by going to woundedpawproject.org. See what you can do. The money will be used to protect, advocate, and train these animals for our first responders, veterans, and their families. Simple and easy. WoundedPawProject.org. WoundedPawProject.org. You'll be saving a paw to save a life. Chad Benson Show.
I'm exhausted. If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
A duffel bag was left on the doorstep of a church in New Miami, Ohio, so the Butler County Sheriff's Office says its bomb squad was called out to investigate. Responding officers heard the sounds of purring, not ticking, and used their X-ray equipment to figure out what was inside. Turned out it was 6 newborn kittens and their mother inside the bag with a note. Mom's name is Sprinkle. She began giving birth at 2 p.m. A post on the Sheriff's Office Facebook page said the litter is being cared for at a local humane society and that the mother and kittens are doing well and are warm and cozy and fed.
Yeah. There's a game called Exploding Kittens. That was the last. My little sister, she got it for Christmas a couple of years ago, and it's like, I played it. It was fun. These were going to be other exploding kittens. What if they detonated? Oh, guys, we made a mistake. Let's not talk about this. Don't let this get out. But you couldn't, right? Like if you thought it was a bomb and then you blew it up and you found out it was kittens later. If I knew about it, I would be like, I got to tell somebody. Hey, Jim, remember that time you blew up the cats? That was, while gross and sad, it was hilarious. I mean, you were doing it for the right reasons. You thought that, you know, the thing with the hole and, but, you know, that was hilarious. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. I do love hearing from all of you. I said it over and over again. People are idiots. We know that. I mean, let's relive how stupid human beings are. Let's go back to the kids talking about Helen Keller and who she was, not he.
Helen Keller is the Nazi guy.
No! What Nazi guy?
I don't know. He's like a terrorist.
Helen Keller is a Nazi terrorist that is a male.
Okay, so these are kids in school. And, of course, what about D-Day?
Do you know what D-Day is? D-Day.
A person? A rapper?
Yeah. So when you hear stories, those are real individuals who are in school. When you hear stories about people putting Gorilla Glue in their hair and then that becoming, you know, nuts, and then people continuing to do it, you shouldn't be surprised.
You guys, my hair will not comb. Yo, I'm going to the hospital right now. I'm on my way to the emergency room. I'm freaking out. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. So I just got out the hospital and they did nothing for me. Look at my hair. This is what they told me to do. You should apply either olive oil, tea tree oil, or coconut oil on your hair to attempt to remove the glue. Or you can shave your hair.
Yeah, you're a hot mess. What are you thinking? Because more and more, you know, that Tessica Brown, it happened. By the way, Gorilla Glue sales through the roof. They should give her. She's the employee of the year right now. She's employee of the year. But are we surprised that other people are doing stuff? Are we surprised that other people are doing things like this? No, we shouldn't be surprised at all. You heard people say, Helen Keller, isn't he the person that was a Nazi? What's D-Day? It's a rapper. So don't be surprised that people see somebody do something stupid and then say, well, I can do it better. I know how to do that better. And I hear they're turning people away down at the hospital. Like, we don't fix stupid here, honey. It's not something we do. Just can't do it. There you go. The internet made you. The internet can fix your problems. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. If you blew the cats up, you can glue them back together. You're so mean, Chad. Could you imagine they put one of those little things, those robots in there? Like, we're going to have to detonate it. It's making a noise. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter, Instagram. Check out Chad Benson Show TV on the YouTube and, of course, Facebook as well. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
As the FAA orders immediate stepped-up inspections of Boeing 777s that have the same engines as the one exploding Saturday shortly after takeoff from Denver, a passenger on that flight speaks out.
As soon as we hit the clouds is when there was just this huge boom. And that's the only way I can describe it, because it felt like there was an explosion. You knew immediately that something was wrong, that something was not right.
Brenda Doan, a passenger on that flight to Hawaii.
There was panic right away. People were screaming. I screamed. I'm a panic button, so I did scream. And then it kind of went calm.
And
you could see smoke. You felt the plane start really shaking, and you just knew there was a problem.
The plane turned around, landed safely back at Denver. Nobody above or on the ground hurt.
Which is great, right? Like, that's awesome. Terrifying, though. You find religion in a moment like that. You could be agnostic. You could be atheist. You could be, you find religion. You find religion. Because planes aren't like cars, right? Your car gets, something goes wrong with its engine. You just kind of slowly pull over to the side if you can. Even you stop it there, throw on the emergency brake lights, and hope somebody helps you pull it. There's none of that. There's none of that. Zero. There isn't like, hey, Steve, pull over by that cloud. We'll just get out and we'll see if we can jumpstart this. We'll call quadruple A for this. No. There is none of that. And you're helpless. And that's already one of the things. The fear of flying, so much of that is the helplessness of you don't control anything. You don't control anything at all. You're not the pilot. You don't understand it. And even if you do, you just don't control anything. So now what? Well, they're going to take a look at everything. But it's obviously the blade. And that is absolutely, they're already saying that 2 blades broke. One of them broke down by what they call the root of it, down at the right at the center, and the other one was apparently they already had issues with something like this.
The really important piece to get back would be that fan blade or the piece of the fan blade, because you like to have 2 sides of the failure.
And so they snapped, they went through, it caused parts of it to fall from the sky, so you're sitting there, you're like, what the hell's that noise? And you go outside, and there's a giant, huge piece of the engine. There's some ring cameras or blink cameras, whatever those are, showing things landing in the middle of the street. Terrifying for the people on the ground. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is crazy. And then you're looking for the plane. Where's the plane? So you're going to circle around and land on us? So now the search, if you will, for how this thing broke apart. Was this something that was based on manufacturing? Was there weakness in the manufacturing? Was this something that it had struck a couple things, and we'll find out down the road that they just did some quick investigations, but they never really, delved super deep inside. But this isn't when you see these 777s, like producer Phil and I were talking. So if you guys don't know, producer Phil's a giant nerd. He likes trains. He likes planes. He loves travel like that. He's got train schedules at home, and it's a little special. But we were talking about this. So the 77, if I'm right, Phil, the 777 is kind of like you've got the 747 that's now gone and the 737 that's a smaller versions. There's passengers, get you to and fro, short hops. But this one's supposed to take you to Europe and back Europe kind of thing.
Yeah, the 777 and the 787 are their long-haul planes right now.
Yeah, and when I was a kid growing up, you get on that 747, you always felt like, oh, my God, this is great. Man, it got 4 engines. One of them falls off, we're fine. Well, this one was still, and the fire's coming out. People are freaking out, as you would do. The other one worked just fine. They've got all kinds of checks. Oh, check this, check that. What's going on? Because of things that have happened in the past, they put into place things that they didn't know about that they need to worry about now and go from there. And that was one of those things. They made it there safely. But, yeah, you know what? You're maybe rethinking going to Hawaii at this moment. You know what? I'm going to pass. I'll sit by the pool because that's where they were headed from Denver. Thank God. But they've grounded some of these planes who have this specific engine. And there are other engines on, so Rolls-Royce makes some, and there's several different companies that make this. But this one, I think it's Pratt and Whitney, this one they're looking at right here specifically. But terrifying. If you've not seen the video, I mean, yeah, like I say, you in a situation like that, I don't care who you are, religion's a part of it.
Initially, there was chaos. I mean, I did scream, and my daughter kind of said, "Mom, don't scream." And I grabbed out my rosary. I was scared. I mean, there were people around kind of yelping and doing a little bit of, which is to be expected. And then we kind of went calm. Everyone went calm to hear what the flight attendant was telling us was going on.
Yeah, you find religion in a situation like that. All is well. But Boeing's had some issues over the last couple of years. Let's not pretend that they haven't. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Still here. Not gone anywhere. We passed a milestone.
It's stunning, horrible. I mean, if you look at what has gone on now, and we're still not out of it, 500,000 deaths. It's terrible. It is historic. We haven't seen anything even close to this for well over 100 years since the 1918 pandemic of influenza. It's stunning when you look at the numbers, almost unbelievable, but it's true. This is a devastating pandemic, and it's historic. People will be talking about this decades and decades and decades from now.
Yeah. They talk about it for several reasons. One is our reaction to it. Did we not do enough? Did we overreach? We'll learn. Just like they're going to learn from the issues with the plane and what took place, they'll learn from this. And so will individuals. Because there will be a postmortem. There will be a breakdown of this when all is said and done. Was this done in such a way that it was used, I don't want to say super control people, because I know some people break it out that way, but was this used eventually once it got to a certain point where, let me tell you about government. Government doesn't like to say sorry. Government never wants to apologize for anything. Government will never admit it made a mistake. So if this was overreach, you'll never hear about it. They'll bury that all day long. There's a professor and teaching doctor, Dr. Martin Makary, professor of surgery at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Pretty cool place. They didn't let me in, but whatever. Who said, we'll be out of this by mid-April. We'll be at the point where we're going to have definitely herd immunity. He said, first of all, he goes, and this is something we've talked about here. I think the data, if we were being honest with ourselves, this thing has spread far more than we realized. Far more. That the asymptomatic side of things is much bigger. So when you see, 22 million people have tested positive, you may go 120 million people may have had this thing. You're like, oh, wow. It may be 5 times, 6 times as many. Some people say 10. Let's split the difference, even 5. Then we're at 120 million people that have had this thing. And then if you're talking about vaccinations, either first or second, and we're heading towards 50 or 60 or 70 million, I don't know what the number is at this moment in time, then you're at a point where, you're starting to look at what? Falling numbers at a massive rate. And that's what he says. Is he right? Some people say, no, he can't be right. Well, why? Those people have skin in the game. Those people have skin in the game. They don't want it to be that way. But when you go and you look, and he said this, science basically says, hold on a second. You're not going to get this precipitous drop. You can't explain this with, by the way, we're not traveling anymore like we were for Christmas. No, you can't explain that. And we've always known that there will not be herd immunity with vaccinations only. It just isn't going to happen. So there you go. How real is that? I mean, he makes a very compelling argument. It's an argument that we could actually talk about, which people, and I challenge you every day, don't take my word for it. Go search for yourself. Be an open-minded skeptic. Meaning, I'm skeptical of what you're telling me. I'm not saying I don't believe it, but I'm skeptical of what you're telling me. I want to see it for myself. I want to do the research here. I want to know what's going on based on not what you want me to hear, because there are people out there who it's amazing that they almost root for people to get this if they say, well, I think we're getting close. No. We're going to wear a mask for a long time. I mean, Fauci comes out and says, oh, yeah, as far as a mask goes.
Why do you think Americans might have to wear masks into 2022?
Because it depends on the level of dynamics of virus that's in the community. Because if you see the level coming down really, really very low, I want it to keep going down to a baseline that's so low that there's virtually no threat, or not no, it'll never be zero, but a minimal threat. Then I believe you're going to be able to say, for the most part, we don't necessarily have to wear masks.
So that's going to be when? Because you move the goalposts all the time. People are frustrated. First, it was going to be by April, we're going to start to really see something. And then by the summer, we should be back into some normal way of life. And then by the start of next school year, it's going to be go time. And now it's like Christmas in the winter next year. And people are frustrated. They're sick and tired of the goalposts. And they're asking the question over and over again of, do we believe our leaders anymore? Yeah, you can. Totally. If you want to believe them. But you can also believe that our leaders have skin in the game and it's okay to ask questions, and that some of them may use certain situations politically to their benefit. Open-minded skeptic. Challenge everything in a curiosity way. Not in a jerky way, but just challenge it. I'd like to see for myself. It's okay to ask questions. It is. If you're interested in that. If you just want to be a sheeple, knock yourself out. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program, Car Shield. Car Shield. So you get a car, right? So you're like, hey, Chad, I got a car. And you're like, I paid it off, and I got like 120,000 miles on it. Oh, but you know what? I don't have a warranty or anything. What happens that check engine light comes on? Well, you're going to have to cover all that. That's a you thing. Oh, yeah. You don't got anything to protect yourself, so what do? You get Car Shield. It's just that simple. Whether the car has 5,000 or 50,000 miles on it, call them up. 800-665-2157. Mention code Benson, save 10%. Explain to them what you're looking for. Say, hey, you know what? I don't have any electronics in the car. I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about, though, is my transmission, my engine. Do you have a plan? Yeah, they got plans start as low as $99 a month. You get amazing things like 24/7 roadside service, a rental car for free while your car's in the shop. If your car's in the shop for 4 days and you get a free rental car, that's huge. So that way you don't have to ride share and all that stuff. And the shop is the shop that you choose. Take it wherever you want. They get them paid directly. 1 million drivers CarShield is help. They're America's #1 auto protection company. That's what they're all about. Protecting you, protecting your wallet, protecting your car. Call 800-665-2157. Mention code Benson to save 10%. Or go online, carshield.com, carshield.com. Use code Benson to save 10%. A deductible may apply. Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition, liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending? Let's take a peek and see what's trending on the internet. The interwebs indeed. Start first on Google. To Google. Very interesting stuff. Bob Dole, of course, announced last week he's got cancer. He's 97. But Joe Biden popped over to Watergate and paid him a visit. They go back a long way, and they worked on a lot of different things. And he wanted to stop in. Class act right there on that. Continue to move on. Woody Allen. So the Woody Allen Sunyi HBO Mia Farrow thing came out. Allen versus Farrow. And, of course, Woody and them denounce it. And it's just weird. The whole thing's weird. Look, Mia Farrow's weird, too. It's all weird. It's just, when you think of movies and entertainment, that a lot of people are weird. Some are just normal folk, but a majority of them, odd, to say the least. Genesis Invitational. It's the biggest thing trending yesterday. It was the golf tournament. Tony Finau came in second. He lost in a playoff. And, guy's got the most game of any golfer out there maybe. And you could see it. You could see it. Max Homa, the guy that won it, in the first playoff hole, he hits the ball onto the root of a tree, like nestled up against the tree. He manages to get it out and to make par. Finau misses a putt, and then he makes par. They go to the third. Finau takes his first shot, and he puts it into the sand. And when they were walking up to the green, he had that look. And I always say there's a look. You could see it in people. And when I watch soccer games and like the World Cup or whatever, and they got to go take a penalty shot, you could look at their face and go, that guy's missing it. He didn't want to. He wants to be anywhere else but there. Anywhere else. He didn't want it. He didn't want to raise his hand. He wanted no part of it. And you could tell. It's sad. It's mental at this point. Mike Lindell's trending because, he got his wish. Dominion Voting Systems is going to sue him and MyPillow for $1.3 billion. Oh, my goodness. Daft Punk, the legendary dance duo, has announced that they've split up after 28 years. They are retiring their helmets and going their separate ways. Those are the guys who you never see. I think they're French. I mean, you can, there's always, you find pictures of them, but for all intents and purposes, they've kind of stayed very quiet in the way that they've always done their music. And it's been about the music, and they wear it looks like racing helmets. It's Guy Manuel de Home Cristo and Thomas Bangalter. Yeah. So they're going their separate ways. Around the world. Retiring those helmets, kids. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
America had no real plan to vaccinate most of the country.
My predecessors, my mother would say, God love them, failed to order enough vaccines, failed to mobilize the effort to administer the shots, failed to set up vaccine centers. That changed the moment we took office. I directed Jeff Science, my COVID-19 response coordinator, to buy more vaccines and to speed up delivery. With chemists, biologists, pioneering technologies that less than a year ago were little more than theories and aspirations.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. Not all that's true. You know, it's one thing Fauci pushes back on when they say, well, you guys weren't prepared. He says, hold on a minute. That's not true. You're not going to buy. One thing Trump did. Let's look. Trump dropped the ball in a lot of ways. We realize that. But one of the things that Trump did is he did pre-order. But he went and pre-ordered from a lot of different companies. Said, here, go, do this. We're buying this. Now, after the rollout, they didn't order enough because he had abandoned everything at that point in time, and his only hyper-focused, laser-like focus was on one thing, and that was the election, and that was it. It wasn't on anything else. Was not on anything else. I mean, I think we all understand that. It was, this is what we're doing. But no, he did. But you don't order, hey, I'll take another 500 million of those. I mean, I don't know if they work or not because we haven't even got the data back yet. So, but we'll just order as much as you've got. So I'm not going to blow Trump out for that. A lot of the other stuff, yeah, he could have done a lot better. But the vaccine is going to help us to get to where we need to get, along with the fact that I think we're getting closer to some sort of immunity. And I think when we look back on this entire thing and we do the postmortem, we're honest with ourselves. And it may not be a generational, it may be a few generations before we actually start, as we see in history. We may roll back and go, oh, well, they did everything right. It was this, and then we get removed from a generation where people can start to look at the stuff non-politically and say, yeah, this was a hot mess. We made mistakes here. We overdid some things. We underdid some things. And a lot of this was based more on politics than the virus. And they changed some things around. And it was, we screwed up. We screwed up. But that'll be a generation removed. Right now, we have a battle of science. Science has become weaponized. Science has become scary. That people go out and use science and say, well, it's settled science, or you can't even have a discussion. So our whole thing about being an open-minded skeptic doesn't mean that you don't believe something, but you want to do the research yourself. And you do that by reading and asking questions. I mean, today, if it was up to people who wanted somebody to be guilty, they would just say, this person's guilty, period. Don't do any investigation. You don't need to. We've already done it for you. Wait. Or this person's innocent. No, don't worry. We've already done everything. We've investigated. There's no reason for you to look any further. And when I always find it scary when people say stuff like that. I'm like, well, hold on a second. That's you're trying to get me not to look at something. So that makes me want to look at something else. Maybe look a little bit further into this. I mean, think about the Pfizer thing. Now they're like, well, it's 85% good with one shot as far as fighting the virus. And you don't have to store it in, the Arctic. You can store it in a pharmaceutical grade level of cold, where they have refrigerators there that are right around 0 to like -5, not -93 or whatever ridiculousness it's supposed to be in. And they're just finding stuff out like this, and because of Israel and other companies and countries who are doing studies on, well, can we just give one? I mean, wouldn't it be better if everybody had a shot rather than just a portion of people getting 2 shots?
The first case of the South African variant has now been found in a New York State resident. That variant has been found in 12 states and Washington, D.C. Meanwhile, a new Israeli study suggesting that 1 dose of the Pfizer vaccine could be 85% effective in preventing symptomatic disease. However, health officials saying more information is needed, and for now, it's critical we stick to the current 2-dose schedule.
Of course, that's what they're going to say. I think we need to give as many people as we can shots. I think we need to give as many people we can. I would rather say you got 100 people in a room. I walked you through this last week. You got 100 people in the room. 1, 2, 3, 4 other people come in, and maybe they're asymptomatic. But those first 100, you only gave 50% of the shots, 100% of the shots, but to just 50 people. So they're fine. The other side of the room, they're not. They could catch it. They could get sick. They could have underlying conditions. Maybe 1 or 2 die. And it still spreads. Or you give it to 100, and maybe a few people get sick, but the nobody dies. And out of those 100, the few that do catch it, they never even really feel the symptoms. Which one's better? If it's about stopping this thing and saving lives. It's a fair question. Simplistic. It's radio. We don't have 12 hours to explain something. I think it's a fair question to ask. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. But remember, fairness, it's a different thing. It's about all kinds of crazy stuff. Like, is a perfect example. If you guys have not seen, you're going to see throughout the day Coke Less White, because they've got a program that they're rolling out that is about being less white. Now, this is not for the consumer. None of this is about the consumer. This is about the people that work at Coke. It's about workplace inclusion. Okay? So it's about the workplace inclusion and everybody being included. And some of it's on their LinkedIn, you can go see. And then, of course, some people that found it, they ran with it because it is insane. I mean, some of the stuff that they talk about is nuts. It really is. It's about fairness and inclusion. Well, yeah, that all sounds great, fine and dandy. Fairness and inclusion. I think we're at a point where we understand that as human beings. Now, does everybody get it? No. But the majority, and I would say the vast majority, get it. But some of this stuff's insane. It encourages the staff to try to be less white. What the hell are you talking about? By the way, they've confirmed that this course is part of a learning plan to help build an inclusive workplace. But also know that the video circulating on social media is from a publicity available LinkedIn learning series and is not a focus of the company's curriculum. So it's part of the workplace thing. It's like not the focus. It's part of, but not the focus. The company was referring to a YouTube video that was shared in which Robin DiAngelo, it's all about Robin DiAngelo's best-selling book, basically, like how you're racist because she felt she was racist, so we're all racist. It's so stupid. All of this stuff is nuts. It is. Well, I'm looking at some of it, and it's crazy. But this is the world that we live in now. Everybody gets canceled for something. It's not if, but when. And could you imagine telling people, hey, could you be less gay? Wait, what? Hey, could you be less Muslim? Could you be less woman? Could you be less whatever? I don't, that sounds insane. Well, that's just kind of what it's about. And it's crazy. And they all feel like they have to do something to show, look at us. Look how inclusive we are. Look how great we are at this. Look at this thing. We're doing all of this so you guys don't hate us. You guys already did that. There was that song about buying people a Coke. We've got actually some of how they present this to said individuals who are going to be working at Coke.
Like to buy the world a home.
Over the coming hours and days, you will learn some amazing things about Coca-Cola and what we strive to be, which is a more inclusive environment. That's why we're going to talk to you about being less white. To be less white is to be less oppressive, be less arrogant, be less certain, be less defensive, be less ignorant, be more humble. Listen, believe, break with apathy, and break with white solidarity. Research shows that by age 3 to 4, children understand that it's better to be white. Dude, you're nuts! I'm sorry, this is inclusivity at its finest. If we can get you to hate you, that's a win for everybody. Coca-Cola, we're committed to being inclusive and divisive. Yeah, it's kind of what it's about. That's all the stuff that's on there. Like, some of this stuff I'm reading, I'm like, so I've got to be less certain? What the hell does that even mean? I'm certain that if the engines fall off the plane, it will crash. You need to be less certain about that. Well, those engines didn't fall off. Just one engine had an issue. Be less oppressive. How are you impressive? How are you oppressive? I'm just curious. What have you done to oppress somebody? What have you done? I think it's a fair question. Arrogant. People are arrogant of all colors, right? All stripes of life. There's arrogant. None of us listen, by the way. Very rarely do we listen. It's just, it's crazy. Yeah, you know what? Stop being a Richard. Judge everybody as an individual. It doesn't mean you don't see color, but still, this stuff goes on. I don't even know. Like, if I was working at a place like that, I don't know what I would do. I would probably say, I think it's time for me to move on. I'm all about inclusive. Like I said, I don't care. If you can do the job, I don't care who you are, what you love, what you identify as. I don't. But if you're going to live your life as a victim, and people on the right do it, people on the left do it, I don't want to know. I got other things going on. So stupid. Try to be less white. I'll try, but maybe after lunch. We'll see. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show. Twitter, tweet, text. Love hearing from you. All right, check it out. I love my dogs all weekend. Doodle drove me crazy. He does. I love my dog Doodle. He's the greatest dog in the world to me. He's a pain in the butt, but he's bouncier than he's ever been, and he's happier than he's ever been, and he's barkier than he's ever been, and that's because he feels great, and that's all because of Rough Greens. About a year ago, we were debating on whether or not we were going to put him down because he just was miserable. His hips hurt. He had arthritis, and he has fatty tumors. We tried everything, and I said, well, let's give it a little while longer, and we'll try. I mean, there's nothing else really to try. But then we tried Rough Greens, and we said, well, it's a supplement. It goes on your dog's food. It's not actual dog food. We tried it. Lo and behold, changed everything. Their Canine VitaSmart, it's powdered nutrition. You put it right on top, and it was awesome. It's a powder. That's it. It's got vitamins, minerals, digestive enzymes, probiotics, omega-3, 6, 9. It's got all of this stuff. It brings your dog's food to life because the food that your dog eats, it's meant to live on a shelf. It's really not meant to be living, and it's done wonders for him. Energy, tons of it, but mobility and joint health. He's not been sick a day. It is incredible. Now, what I love about them is we give it to our puppies, we give it to Doodle, try it before you buy it. Right? Just cover the shipping costs. It's $8.95. Your bag is free. It's going to come out to you, and you try it. Go to ruffgreens.com/Chad. That's ruffgreens.com/Chad. Or call 833-MY-DOG-77. That's 833-MY-DOG-77. Try it before you buy it. Cover shipping. Your dog will love it. ruffgreens.com/Chad. Rough Greens, they make any pet food better. Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
The Hollywood Foreign Press Association, which puts on the Golden Globes, has been accused for years of shady stuff. Joked about many times by Globes host Ricky Gervais.
As if film stars will stay away from the chance of winning a Golden Globe, particularly if their film company has already paid for it.
Now, new allegations in a scathing LA Times article, the most serious being that the nonprofit HFPA may be paying members inappropriately in a way that might violate IRS rules. Members, again, also hit with claims that nominations can be influenced by lavish perks from studios, and the LA Times saying many of the HFPA's members aren't even actually working journalists. The HFPA says all its business dealings are ethical and legal.
Oh, bunch of crap. Translation, let me break that down for you. Golden Globes? You could buy one. You get enough oomph behind you. You get enough push behind you. You get most of these. I have a friend who is he votes in the Academy Awards. He's like, I haven't seen 90% of these movies. I don't. They give you a vote. Yeah, it's the same thing for sports, like the Heisman. Well, if you're great here on the West Coast, everybody's a Heisman voter's asleep by midnight. Your game's kicking off. They ain't watching your game. Be surprised. So it's not a shocker. You could buy a Golden Globe and get an Emmy. Look at what's his name got an Emmy. What's that guy's name again? Oh yeah, Andrew Cuomo. He got a great book, right? How to Kill Old People in a Time of Crisis. I think they're going to make that into a movie. They may make it into a movie. You don't know. You've no idea, but they may. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet and text the program. Love hearing from every single one of you. I do. Of course, I keep playing this because you can't play it enough. You can't. Kids need to be back in school, and the reason's pretty simple. They're stupid. This should be the only sound you hear all day to realize kids need to be back in school. And some kids need to be in school for a very, 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 very long time. A very long time. This is a history teacher talking history with this class when somebody decides to tell everybody exactly who led the fail beer hall pooch. And, then eventually got on track and led everybody to a world war.
Helen Keller is the Nazi guy.
What?
No.
What Nazi guy?
I don't know.
No Nazi guy. That's all you need to know.
Helen Keller is a Nazi terrorist that is a male. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah, I'm going to write Helen Keller up here. Yeah. Right? No.
Are you thinking of Hitler?
Who's Hitler? Who's Hitler?
Who is Hitler?
Helen Keller was the blind and deaf person who was fake. She didn't exist, but everyone believes she was deaf and blind.
What?
So first of all, let's unpack a portion of this because it gets better, kids. So Helen Keller, of course, was the Nazi guy who led the whole Nazi thing back in the Nazi days. And then Helen Keller wasn't that, though. It was an imaginary person who did imaginary stuff that didn't exist. There can't be more.
What? She was fake?
Yeah, she was deaf and blind.
She's not fake. Well, what about D-Day? Does anybody know what D-Day is?
D-Day.
In person? A rapper?
Are you being serious?
Yeah, he's being serious. She's being serious. A rapper. Weep for the country, kids. Weep for the country. The stupid is strong. There's a reason people put Gorilla Glue in their hair. Because the stupid, again, is strong. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
Today here in the U.S., United and Japanese airlines like JAL and ANA have grounded their Boeing 777s with Pratt & Whitney engines, and Boeing says it supports a move to suspend operations of 777s with those engines. 69 of them are in service and 59 are in storage. The FAA issuing an emergency airworthiness directive mandating immediate and stepped-up inspections of the engines on those older Boeing 777s. In the Colorado case, the focus is on broken fan blades.
Yes. So I'm sure everybody saw it. So you had a blade that looked like it came loose, sliced through. They're looking at two blades in particular that they think may have had issues even before that. They inspect these things and they give them a once-over, but it's not like planes are meant to be flown. A couple of my friends are pilots, big-time pilots. And one of them's now retired and worked for a long time working for British Airways and for many, many other Virgin and whatnot. And another one is currently flies for a company called Evia Air, which flies back and forth to Hong Kong and to China. It's a big company. And they'll say, look, these things are meant to be in the air all the time. They're not meant to be on the ground. The ground's bad for them. It's meant to be flown. But yeah, you can ask questions about, like, what kind of things were going on here. Is it these engines? Because they're maybe looking, were these engines having issues? Was it the way that these things were manufactured? Is there a sell-by date on these things that it's not just one blade? It maybe needs to look at all these blades, but the blades are it. The engine, though, survived, and that's a good thing. But the blades, yeah, definitely worry.
The really important piece to get back would be that fan blade or the piece of the fan blade, because you like to have two sides of the failure.
Yeah, and it looked like one completely snapped off down at the bottom, and the other one snapped off. Is it because of that one snapping off, or were both of them ready to go?
Is it possible there was some type of hidden flaw in the metallurgy from this blade from years ago that took a long time to work its way to the surface and somehow got missed by the inspections?
Which is scary, right? Like, that's a scary thing. But if you saw it, so they left Denver, and they got up in the and they seemed to be just kind of motoring along, right? Like, that's what you do. You take off, and you wait for the bing scenario. It's like where that means that the flight attendants can get up and start moving about, and that we're good, and that you're leveling off, and oh God.
I thought we were in the clear. We were just hitting altitude going into the clouds, and I turned over to just talk to my daughter, and all of a sudden there was just this huge boom, and that's the only way I can describe it. It was a boom that almost felt like an explosion, and you knew that there was just a big problem.
Yeah. And if you saw the pictures, if you saw the video, it was insane. It was crazy. And you find the Lord. 35,000 feet in the air is not being on the freeway when your engine blows up, kind of, and your ping, check engine light comes on and start to overheat. It's not that. You're 35,000 feet in the air. You're like, oh my God.
Initially there was chaos. I mean, I did scream. And my daughter kind of said, "Mom, don't scream." And I grabbed out my rosary. I was scared. I mean, there were people around kind of yelping and doing a little bit of, which is to be expected. And then we kind of went calm. Everyone went calm to hear what the flight attendant was telling us was going on.
What's going on is you got serious issues. You see it. And as a passenger, it's not like when one of the engines goes off. And there's a catastrophic and benign. Benign is maybe the engine shuts off. There could be fuel pressure problems, something of that nature. But the other engine's working fine. And, you get the guy come on, go, we have some fuel pressure issues. We're going to go back. This was visible. It's on fire. And again, 35,000 feet. This isn't pull over to the side of the road. Like, hey, there's a cloud. Let's pull over there. We'll figure it out. It's none of that stuff. It's something other than that. And you have no control. You have no special powers. They're not Superman or Superwoman or Superperson for those of you out there who want to be gender neutral. You are none of those things. You're just a human being who has no control, and that's already terrifying for a lot of people. They got back. They're going to be fine, but questions will remain to be, unanswered for the next several weeks about these engines and these blades. And Boeing's already had some issues over the last several months and years, going back to the MAX and whatnot. This is more of an engine problem, it looks like, rather than the actual Boeing itself. This is a different thing, but it's still terrifying. And every one of us, you're looking out there. I mean, you think to yourself, what if the engine falls off? Well, if the engine falls off, it's got one engine, it's fine. But what if it tears off part of the wing? Oh. How close were they? Those are things that we'll find out. Right now, those answers remain unanswered, but they'll get them. And it's just, how often do you see something like that? And you're watching the whole thing and people are filming it and we see things that we've never seen before. Ever. And that's crazy. It is. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Here we are heading into, well, what was it, March last year? Then we kind of got the lockdown for most of the country. So we're a year into this thing. And how and where we go from here, we've passed a horrific milestone.
It's stunning, horrible. I mean, if you look at what has gone on now, and we're still not out of it, 500,000 deaths. It's terrible. It is historic. We haven't seen anything even close to this for well over 100 years since the 1918 pandemic of influenza. It's stunning when you look at the numbers, almost unbelievable, but it's true. This is a devastating pandemic, and it's historic. People will be talking about this decades and decades and decades from now.
Yeah. But much like with what we just talked about with the plane thing, we're not going to know for a while exactly how all this thing played itself out. And with that, there's not a lot of politics in it. There isn't. With this, there's lots of politics. There have been people on the other side asking questions about, hey, do we need to do this? Do we need to shut every single thing down? Do we need to do a lot of the things that we have done? Do we need to not be in school the way that we were? Do we need all of this stuff? Should we have done it? No. Because in the political side, we turned mask into a fight. We did all of these things. And if you dare ask a question, you could be in trouble. In fact, there's a very interesting article that is out by Michael Korach. It was out last week. And it says something very just, hey, coronavirus, a hyped up flu or fatal pandemic. And it breaks down a lot of things, not just here, but globally. It's claimed about 2.3 million lives across the world. The number in like a place like Israel, 5,000 people have passed, with most of the victims, almost 90%, age 65 or older, with issues. And the question is it a really hyped up flu, or was this something far worse? And they are also asking the question is, did we get to a point during this thing where there was really no containment for it? And because there was no containment for it, did that mean no matter really what we did because of the community spread that it was out there, that outside of staying in your home 24/7, there wasn't going to be much to slow this thing down? Also, fair questions to ask. And you have other people asking questions and saying, hey, by April, this thing's going to be gone. You got a doctor out of Johns Hopkins who has been very, very honest about this in the way that he's looking at it, but honest about the fact that he says, I can't have other doctors, as much as I would like them to come out with me, they can't come out and speak and they say, I kind of agree with you that we might be heading towards a herd immunity because we have missed how many asymptomatic people or people who pass things off like a headache and, some congestion that as just allergies or something of that nature, when really they were probably asymptomatic. And we've been like, a lot of doctors have been like, well, yeah, it's probably 2 or 3 times, but I think it's a lot more than that. But if you bring that up, it's like, oh, well, you don't understand. That's not true. Well, government has a huge, massive, massive part to play in this. And they have a face to save, if you will. We've got to save face here, guys. Right? We're not going to tell them everything. We're not. We're just going to kind of let it just go and peter out, and then we'll go from there. What if you found out tomorrow? Hey, we're at herd immunity and this thing's dying off. If you had it once, you get the shot, you're going to be fine. And, or that this thing is just dissipating in such a way that it doesn't matter, that it's going to be gone in the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. Or that there was nothing they could do and that these measures they put in place to quote unquote mitigate really didn't do anything. People would be apoplectic. But you can't challenge stuff like that because if you dare do that, you get attacked as science denied. No. Like, science used to be one of these things where it was not political, and science was all about challenge this, Prove I'm wrong. Prove I'm right. This is what I think. This is what we're looking at. This is the data that I'm looking at. Prove to me that I'm wrong. And then they'll come out and they'll say, well, this is the data. And again, inside of the data, you can mess with numbers. You can change things like everything else. You can give a portion of the story. But I think it's a very fair question to ask. Will we be out of this by April? I don't know. Even if we could be, will the government let us be out of here by April? That's a different question. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. Tweet at us. Home Title Lock. I was reading somebody this weekend who's in a battle over their home. A very famous person, actually, in the fashion industry. Somebody supposedly was letting them have the house, and then they got into a title thing, found out that the title was not in that person's name, even though they'd done everything, and they'd switched over, and it was crazy. That can happen to you. People could steal it. Cyber criminals, in particular, are so adept at doing this, and it's so easy for them to do. They found out all of your records, because it's easy. Everything's out there. It's all in the public. So then they go and they say, all right, we got this, and we got a county recorder's office. We got a copy of the deed. We're going to forge everything. And then from there, we're going to have fake notary. Boom. Now I own the house and you don't, and I can do whatever I want. And by the time you realize that, they've taken out tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars loan against the property. And as far as the people who've loaned, they don't care. They don't care who it is at this point in time. It says that they were it. You say you're occupying the place. Either way, somebody's borrowed money and they're going to have to pay. And you end up losing everything. Don't let that happen to you. Home Title Lock is amazing. Home Title Lock's there to protect you from top to bottom by alerting you anytime something changes in your title, which doesn't happen now. It's simple. It's easy to join. Check it out for yourself. Protect your home with Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com. Register your address. See if you've been a victim. Right? Use code RADIO. Code RADIO. 30 days free protection right there. Check it out for yourself. HometitleLock.com, code radio. HometitleLock.com, code radio. Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
I love it. That right there was a mariachi band in front of Ted Cruz's house. I don't know who did it, but fantastic. You know, I loved the people standing out there holding signs. Ted lie, cost lives. What? How did Ted Cruz kill anybody? Look, I'm not going to lie. What he did was completely stupid. I think we can all agree on that. He understands that.
It was a mistake. At the same time, look, I mean, I got to admit, I started having second thoughts really as I sat down on the plane, as I started leaving. School had been canceled. It was something that we could do, and we were trying to take care of our families, which is what millions of Texans are doing. But at the same time, you're right. As a leader, you need to be here, and you need to be here when Texans were hurting.
And you weren't, and he took off, and, you know, you pissed people off, and blah, 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 blah. People are mad about that. I go back to this, and it's pretty simple. If there wasn't power failures from the power companies in the grid, would him leaving, would that be such a big deal? No. People are like, that's kind of smart. I wish I could do that. And I think a lot of that is, too. People, I wish we could do that. I wish we could have done that. Some people couldn't have done it, even if there wasn't any power failures. And, I just don't I never look at politicians as leaders, but we always want somebody to blame. And Ted is an easy villain. But he's right about a few things.
We're at a very divided place in our country where people are screaming vitriol and hate. And you know what? I think that is a sad sign of where we are. I don't do that to other people. You don't see me screaming at people I disagree with that they need to resign. And one of the things I'm most dismayed about how the last 24 hours has played out, this whole thing has dominated the airwaves instead of focusing on let's solve the problems. Listen, Texans want the power back on. They want the water back on. They want the problems solved.
They do. And you know what? There are problems there that Ted could do nothing about. Ted works on the federal side of things. Remember, it's a very weird way that they do things. They're kind of on an island of their own. They're very insular. They control their own power. There are no Fed regulations. They're unregulated in the market. That's why people are getting bills going, oh, my God, these bills are $10,000, $15,000, $16,000. It's insane for some people, but Texas likes doing its own thing, and that's what they've been able to do. And they've always kind of been that way. But there wasn't a ton he could do. But he's easy to blame. He's so easy to blame. He is the second gunman. He was the first gunman? Oh, his dad was the first gunman. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
I do actually want to debunk this myth that teacher unions, at least our union, doesn't want to reopen schools. Teachers know that in-person education is really important. And it's, we would have said that pre-pandemic. We knew that remote education is not a good substitute. There's a roadmap now in terms of defining those risks between the CDC as well as the resources President Biden is trying to get in the $1.9 trillion package. We have the highway or the roadmap to do this.
That's the president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFL-CIO. The union wants to be back. They really don't have too many demands. And we know that, they need to be back because, as we all know, kids are struggling mightily. Case in point, this is every reason kids should be back at school, and then almost every reason why kids need to go to other schools. There's so many parts to break down in this next 43 seconds, and we're going to break it down for you. So remember, they want to be back. It's a myth that you think teachers aren't going to be back. And you've got all this stuff that they're talking about. But here are kids discussing with their history teacher things like Helen Keller, Pearl Harbor, D-Day.
Helen Keller is the Nazi guy.
So Helen Keller right there is what she said is the Nazi guy. Helen Keller is the Nazi guy. Helen Keller is the Nazi guy. Just want you guys to approach. These are students. School.
No.
What Nazi guy?
I don't know. He's like a terrorist.
Helen Keller is a Nazi terrorist that is a male. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna write Helen Keller up here. Yeah. Right? No.
Are you thinking of Hitler?
Who's Hitler? Who's Hitler?
Who is Hitler?
Helen Keller was the blind and deaf person who was fake. She didn't exist, but everyone believes she was deaf.
So now, Helen Keller is the Nazi guy. Adolf Hitler, we don't know who that is, but Helen Keller did exist, but not really, only in name. Otherwise, she's completely fake. She did not exist. Ann Sullivan, it's all lies. This has been around a while, that Helen Keller's not real, so that's nothing new.
What? She was fake?
Yeah, she was deaf and blind.
Teachers just now I'm going to start throwing stuff out there. See if they know anything.
What Pearl Harbor was, if I say Pearl Harbor.
Is that a bridge?
Is that a bridge? We're over Tabithia? Was that what that one is? Is that a bridge? Helen Keller started a war in 1939. led to the systematic killing of 6 million Jews, and also killed 50 million plus people, as we all know. Nobody knows who Adolf Hitler was. Did not leave the beer hall. Pooch. None of that stuff. None of that stuff's real. None of it's real. Secondly, and this is most importantly, that if there was a Helen Keller, she didn't exist. So we got that. Adolf Hitler, don't know still again. Pearl Harbor is a bridge. So there's a bridge. There's a bridge over there. It's Pearl Harbor. What about some other great things? What about D-Day? What about that?
Do you know what D-Day is? D-Day.
In person? A rapper?
Are you being...
D-Day was not a person. Unless, of course, you want to talk about the fictitious Daniel Simpson, a.k.a. D-Day, from the amazing Animal House, played by the wonderful actor Bruce McGill. If you want to talk about that, that's one thing. But I don't think she was being serious. She thinks he's a rapper. That's where we are. Kids need to be back in school. Kids need to be absolutely back in school. But there's some things, right? There's some things. We got to have things in place. The unions want things in place. Here's my issue with the unions. In many of these places, the big powerful places where they can control much of everything from New York to Illinois to California, they can control so much. They're asking for a lot of different things, not just these things.
It comes down to three things: the layered mitigation strategies, testing so that you can actually see asymptomatic spread, and vaccine prioritization. Not that every single teacher has to be vaccinated before you open any schools, but you should align the vaccine prioritization with the reopening of schools.
All right, so translation: get all the teachers vaccinated. Let's test everybody. Okay, so how does that work? I test you today. Unless you're going to be hermetically sealed, you will have a chance to catch this. But if you're vaccinated, why should you care? And what does it matter if you're vaccinated? If you're vaccinated, it should mean nothing to you at that point in time, whether or not this person is or isn't it, right? So, but they're going to push this thing out. Parents are frustrated. Parents are pissed. Parents are angry.
Just did a survey of my membership, and 85% have said that they would be comfortable being in school if they had the kind of testing, layered mitigation, and vaccine prioritization. My members want it. They just want to be safe.
Who doesn't want to be safe? How about those people that are, working at the grocery store every day? Whether they're overnight stocking stuff so we can go have our snacks, whether they're working at a fast food restaurant, whether they're bagging our groceries. How about them? Well, they're not the same, right? They're not the same. This stuff's insane, and people should be pissed. They should. Absolute crap right there. We need to have kids back in classrooms. D-Day, let's go back to this again. Here's a kid who's not like if I asked Jack about World War II, he could tell me some things. He's 10. They're nowhere near that. He's just through osmosis, and he and I've watched stuff. He would understand what some of that is. You know what he wouldn't say?
Do you know what D-Day is? D-Day.
In person? A rapper?
He would not say that. He would not say that. Should be pissed.
And if there was real danger here, no one would want people to go back to school. But the statistics, the science, we were told all through the campaign, follow the science. Well, now we don't want to follow the science because the teachers union are telling the Democrats not to. They're manipulating the CDC. And we need political leaders and parents to join together and stand up against this, because if they don't, our children will go another year without being in school if it's left up to these unions.
Is that a possibility? You never know. How do teachers really feel about this? How does the teachers unions? How do board members? This is Oakley School Board. It's a union elementary school board, right? This is them not realizing that, first of all, this is how Zoom works. People can hear what you're saying. You guys think you're kidding, right? You guys think you're kidding?
Are we alone?
Yeah.
Bitch, if you're going to call me out, I'm going to f*** you up. Sorry, that's just me.
You know, they forget that there's real people on the other side of those letters that they're writing.
Yes.
Real community members. We have kids or have known kids that have gone to these schools, have a vested interest in this process, and they don't know what we do behind the scenes. And it's really unfortunate. They want to pick on us because they want babysitters back.
Right.
Oh. Yeah. So you're going to blank a teacher, somebody. Look, some of these parents have gone overboard. We all know that. They're frustrated. They've lost their jobs. They're losing everything. Their kids are falling behind. Their kids think that D-Day is actually a rapper and that Helen Keller started World War II because, well, I mean, I don't know if that person can be saved, but there's a lot of that.
Uh-oh. Just FYI, you guys have the meeting. Oh, we have the meeting open to the public right now.
Nuh-uh.
That's what Lori just said. Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh, indeed. They've all resigned, as they should have, because they're idiots. We want our babysitters back? Is that what it is? I mean, is that kind of what it is? For some parents, it may be, but it's also a lot more than that. I think we can all admit. So that's an Oakley Elementary Union School Board hearing talking about they want their babysitters back. Blank, I'll mess you up, blankety, blankety, blank. How dare they? A lot of them feel that way. Not talking about individual teachers. Got to always preface that, right? Because they're holy and sacred. Because they got to work with your kids and my kids. I think most teachers have a great heart, and that's what they want to do. But the unions, a lot of other things that are above the teachers, they're in it for the political power. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. How long will we be wearing masks?
Why do you think Americans might have to wear masks into 2022?
Because it depends on the level of dynamics of virus that's in the community. Because if you see the level coming down really, really very low, I want it to keep going down to a baseline that's so low that there's virtually no threat, or not no, it'll never be zero, but a minimal threat. Then I believe you're going to be able to say, for the most part, we don't necessarily have to wear masks.
So, 2022? We're going to be wearing masks, potentially beyond?
Were you wearing a mask? Were you burned by acid or something like that?
Oh, no, it's just they're terribly comfortable. I think everyone will be wearing them in the future.
They're not that comfortable. How many of you left the house and on the way out, you've dropped the F-bomb or said, oh, blankety blank, because you forgot your mask, or you're walking into a store, a Target, a grocery store, and you forgot your mask, and you got to turn around, walk back to the car, all of us. I want it off. You want it off. We all want it off. But I feel like the goalpost keeps moving, and that's the frustration a lot of us feel. Not just with our kids going back to school, but across the board and everything, and having to think that we may wear a mask for another year or so. And there will be people that will wear a mask and that will avoid crowded places and would do a lot of things like that. That's going to happen. That's the psychological effect in this. But for most of us, given the opportunity, we're going to opt out of the mask as soon as we can. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Shows your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Disney, yeah, wait till you hear what they did. Why they did it, I do not know. But they did it. And what is a simp? What is a simp? What is it? You need to know? Well, you can find out soon. Chad Benson Show.
Running with scissors sounds great compared to this.
Say what?
Arizona police say a man who claimed he had been kidnapped later confessed during an interview that he made it all up to avoid work. The Casa Grande Dispatch reported Wednesday that Brandon Solis from Coolidge, Arizona, told police that two masked men had kidnapped him, knocked him unconscious, and then left him where he was found. Coolidge detectives conducted an investigation that found no evidence that a kidnapping or assault had even occurred. Solis reportedly admitted to police that he made up the story as an excuse to not have to work.
How bad do you hate your job? Like, we're in the part of the world and the time of this world where a phone call to a boss, where you say things like, I've got a really bad headache and my throat hurts. Stay home. I have my nose is running and I've got a bit of a fever. Stay home. You've got an upset stomach. You're achy and sore. Stay home. That's where we are. This guy's like, nope, I got something better. This is it right here, kids. And he faked it. I'm always curious, like, do you think you're going to get away with it? Like, do you think that's going to happen? Do you think, oh, you're getting away with this thing? No, you're not getting away with it. You're not getting away with it at all. In fact, you're not even close to getting away with it. It's going to be the exact opposite. You're going to totally not get away with it. It is amazing. It is incredible. But I expect that stuff now from people. I do. I mean, we got people putting Gorilla Glue in their hair after that one lady did it. And then they're going to the hospital and they're being told, well, I can't do that anymore. We're not going to help you. We can't fix stupid. What do you mean? You can't fix stupid. That's what they're saying. So do I expect stuff like that? Yes, I do. I expect stuff. There's a guy in England. That was like, I can't be around my roommates anymore. Like, I just can't do it. And so Cole said, I'm going to get arrested. So I don't have to be around you people. I can't stand it. I don't want anything to do with you. You people are driving me crazy. I am over you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. I'm done. Yeah, that's how bad it's gotten for some people. Said he wanted to go to prison so he could have peace and quiet from those he shares a home with. Officer said the man wanted for recall to prison, gave himself up at Burgess Hill Police Station last Wednesday. And the reason? He wanted peace and quiet. He wanted peace and quiet. He said once in custody, he said he was heading back to prison to serve further time on his own. New study released in October found that half the population, 53%, said that they had felt angry with other people they know because of their behavior in retaliation to the coronavirus pandemic. And this guy was serious enough about it. It's like, you know what? I'm going to go to a place where bad things may happen to me, but at least I won't be around you people. What does that say about you? Says a lot. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Tweet at us, text the program. Do love hearing from all of you. So the Muppets. Well, you know the Muppets.
Thank you, and welcome for the moment to the Muppet Show. Listen, I really feel bad about this, but I have a special announcement.
Hey, maybe we've gotten lucky at last.
Yeah, maybe tonight's show's been canceled. Tonight's show has been canceled.
Have I died and gone to heaven?
Yeah. So that's the Muppets, kids. Right? It's the Muppets. It's the damn puppet show. Hello, everybody. Kermit the Frog here. You know. Uh-oh. I know. Well, apparently they're so offensive. This is the stuff when we talk about all the chaos, the cancel culture, all the lunacy that goes on out there, the world of weakness, which is what we are continuing to garden every day and continuing to water. So if you have Disney Plus, you will see a warning of offensive content. I want you guys to understand that. The disclaimer shown prior to each episode warns viewers that the show features stereotypes and mistreatment of people or cultures. The program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people and cultures. Those stereotypes were wrong then and wrong now. The blank are you talking? They're puppets. They're puppets. You know, they're puppets. Kermit the Frog here and puppets, and we've got Miss Piggy. Just, oh boy, whoa, that's crazy. Who would do that? I did that? Me? Oh, man. Yeah. This is what we do. We keep feeding the weak insanity and things like that. Where you're like, hey, we got to put a disclaimer here on the Muppet Show, because you never know when a green frog may piss off a pig person who doesn't exist, and that may make some people angry. Oh, boy. Now back to reality. Have a blessed day. We're going to do it again tomorrow. Follow along across all social media, at Chad Benson Show, Twitter and Instagram, Chad Benson Show TV on YouTube, and, of course, Facebook as well, Chad Benson Show. We'll do it again tomorrow. Night-night, Jack.
This is the Chad Benson Show.